Hi, my name's Tom Tolhurst. I'm the archivist here at Elan Estate. So my job is to look after the archive that the Elan Valley Trust holds, which contains over 1,700 records. So my day-to-day jobs vary. So one day I might be cataloguing items or packaging items or cleaning items or doing conservation work on items. Our items range in terms of dates from 1703 to the 1970s, and they contain all sorts of different documents from plans and maps and manorial court records and letters and telegrams, all sorts of things. So the importance of trying to preserve these records is that they're incredibly useful resources for historians and researchers who are looking at the construction of the dams and local land rights and sheep walks and all those kind of things. If there was nobody there to preserve the items, they would essentially crumble to dust. Some of them are on particularly delicate materials like tracing paper, for example, which you can imagine is already very delicate. And then you have this huge age gap of, the 1890s tracing paper that has lived up till now, and needs preservation work done to it. It's such a critical resource because we have plans for pretty much every building that was ever in Elan village when it was a workers' camp. We have drawings and plans for almost every single dam here in the valley, including the tunnels that go to Birmingham. We have plans for the different types of machinery that the workers used. We have the plans for their living accommodation, which is a great social history resource, for example. So in an ideal world, if we'd had the money, we would have a separate archive building for these materials, because currently our materials are stored across 2 locations. We'd also ideally have a budget to ensure that everything can be packaged in the best packaging possible. So currently some of our maps and plans are packaged in plastic sheeting. Not all of them can be, because plastic sheeting is expensive. So ideally we'd have that. The other thing we would really like, if it had been possible, would be a professional digitization setup. So a camera and a proper rig and setup for that. So if anyone comes into contact with us attempting to donate a record, the first step would be for the donator to fill out a form, which essentially will lay out the legal framework for that document or record to come into the Trust's care. The next step after that would be to have a look at the document and assess which parts of the collection were suitable for here. It might be the case that it'd be better for the item to be donated to somewhere like the National Library of Wales, for example. So that assessing step needs to be carried out first before we go into cataloguing and packaging and that kind of thing. The next step after that is to assess whether there's any care needs for it. So does the item need to be cleaned, for example, or is there any repair work that needs to be done? Is it small enough that it can be digitized in our scanner, for example? Then either myself or one of my volunteers will write up a description for that item, which contains the content of the item, who donated it, the date, and any scales, if it's a plan, for example, and just kind of a brief description of the item. Each item will also get a catalogue number. So, for example, there would go EVT, which stands for Elan Valley Trust, and then 1, for example, or 2, etc., etc., etc. After it's been catalogued, the next step is to package the item. So for smaller items, they would go into kind of grey archive safe boxes that are acid-free. The problem with standard boxes is they're slightly acidic, which eats away at the paper. If it's a larger item, it will go into one of our wooden map cabinets, either here or in Market Hall in Raider. If it's a roll and it's small enough, it will go into an archive safe tube and be wrapped up in archive tissue paper to keep it safe. Beyond that, it's essentially just if a researcher comes in and wants to look at a certain item, they will take a look for our catalogue first and search for any specific search terms. For example, if they want to look at a tunnel, they type into our catalogue tunnel, and it will come up with all the items related to tunnels. And then I would get the item out for them, take it out of its packaging and walk them through the item, and they can look through it as they wish.